Hello and welcome to this expose of my Piano Sonata I for interactive media, WFS system, and 224 virtual pianos. I'm going to take you through a few of the compositional elements briefly, just to introduce you to the max patch side of things. There's also a virtual reality interface for this, which is what the real-time composer, i.e. the audience member, will be seeing during the installation itself. But firstly, an expose on the actual features of the composition, the musical features themselves, and how they're executed in Max. So in order to start the compositional process, there's a simple on and off switch. It runs for approximately 10 minutes in duration, or this varies ever so slightly within a defined range. Here is the actual score itself. It is very mechanical in nature. The ensemble is down here, so to give you an idea of the sound world, a number of different, it's just calculating now the score, so it's the first note event has happened and we've actually got a score up there now. But anyway, continuing on, so what we have here is a simple mechanism that calculates the information for what we're calling Ensemble 1, which is an ensemble of 32 microtonal pianos. And there are 7 of these ensembles. This, to explain very quickly, this is triggered via a keyboard interface. So you can see back here that we do have a single keyboard here represented for the solo part, but due to a number of different sort of daisy chaining type configurations, all of these ensembles are in turn triggered by this single keyboard in the center. There are also additional keyboards here which can then be triggered through the VR interface and represent each ensemble. Now, just quickly to take you into the synthesis section, we're using Georg Heidu's Fluid Synth to achieve the microtonal pianos, and this is particularly good for this purpose because it takes I can input very, very accurate divisions of the octave with a large number of divisions as opposed to, so I can achieve very, very complex microtonal tunings which are necessary for this piece due to the algorithms which are used to generate the material. So here are the various ensembles. Again, this is the solo part. You can see that some notation is being generated here in Max Score, and this is actually mutated through a variety of processes. Now, we can't hear this right now, so I'm just going to turn on the audio by, it's routed at the moment into Soundflower, which is then going to route us into Ableton Live, where the diffusion takes place. This is where the wavefield synthesis system comes in. Now that the audio is on, you can see that the channels are kicking away here. Now the 16 individual sources that we see across the Soundflower channels, they represent individual sources from within those ensemble collections that I just showed, the various Fluid Synth 2 instances. So we're going to open up the mastering session. This is the 16 channel to 2 channel mix, although the other mix which is being created makes use of the Max external created at the HFMT, which allows for diffusion of those sources through the WFS array. Okay, so you can hear some of the sound coming through now. There are some very deep bass tones which won't be reproduced on these speakers, but I'll provide an audio file for those. So you can hear some examples of the kind of sonorities that can be created with this system. Very, very rich microtonal piano sonorities, almost synthesis-like in nature. The way those are achieved is by taking this initial pitch material as a trigger. That's then fed from the Max Score playback engine into a variety of different playback engines belong here. So we have our undertone, the subharmonic series generator, which uses a very simple algorithm to determine a series, a sort of spectral series based on the input frequency, which in this case is a very high frequency, which is derivative from the frequencies that we see here. What I call the root note, which is actually calculated based on the number of undertones that we want to have, in this case 1002. This is the series that you see reproduced, so it's a huge amount of pitch information, very, very large, and as you can see, the pitches are extremely close together, so this creates quite a lot of interference, and that results in the tones that you're hearing. And actually, each of these is sort of it's sort of a parabola, essentially, if you look at the way that the pitches are spaced. So as we get right down to the bottom in this case, we see that they become incredibly close together. At the top, they're a little further apart. So that was the subharmonic series generator, where we start with a high pitch. We also have the harmonic series generator using what I'm calling upper tones here. Of course, sort of needs its own language to describe this, but this is sort of an additive synthesis idea using a single sampled timbre. So really the pitch material that we start with is fairly irrelevant. It really just gives us a kind of stem cell style development that we can then work with. So yeah, what we have here is the opposite effectively. So you can see we start with a lower tone, we do the same calculation inverted, and then at the top we see a cluster of pitches very, very, very close together. So there's a number of different modules that execute these processes in a fairly similar fashion with slight variation. And yes, there are 7 in total, and of course we also have our solo keyboard, which fairly intuitively is geared towards creating a variety of timbres involving a huge range of configurations of tones. You can see that the length of these lists varies quite considerably. Actually, we're not hearing this particular keyboard at the moment, but I believe I can turn it on. Here we are, so that's coming out. Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, right. Okay, so this is currently disconnected, but I can then add the outlet here. Yeah. Right. There we have it. So, oh, sorry, it is connected. Okay, and this is then the solo playback engine, and all I need to do is just load the actual piano itself, so we can just go back into the previous screen here, and here we have a number of different tones that we can, well, different timbres that we can then load, but we will stick with piano. We take this and insert it into our solo instrument here. Yeah. Okay. Now we have loaded the solo instrument. I'm just going to create some fairly distorted tones, I believe. But this is actually running through quite an array of effects in Ableton Live. And this solo part is really a simulation of what the user who's interacting with the system is to play. Now there is a structure which is calculated based on the number of note events, which does change the density of these various textures, and it's sort of designed like a landscape. You can see here with the spatialization, I'm trying to achieve a kind of very full texture, and as is mentioned in the program notes, it's kind of like a void that the user enters in virtual reality, where these keyboards are spatialized all around them, and they are triggering based on the algorithms and oscillating as a result. And there's visual feedback in the form of notation, which is generated in max score and then transmitted into the interface. So I think that's probably enough of a talk and introduction to this piece for you to get a rough idea. If you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to get in contact, And yes, I have tested this on the WFS system at the HFT in Hamburg, and it was working quite well, so I look forward to hopefully trying it out on the I2 system at the HAW. Thanks very much for your time.